Adobe Suite. Mostly I use Adobe Suite and sound
Adobe.
editing.
Okay.
Adobe Suite, sound
Right. Go
editing.
ahead, Ramya.
Jira, Adobe Suite.
Okay.
Teams.
All right. Teams. All right. Pooja.
We use Jira and we use Google Meets, and for tools, designing Figma and XD both.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Go ahead, Ramandeep.
Yeah, so for interfaces designing Figma, but when it comes to UX, so tools like journey mapping and mainly persona is not that we use much, but that has been done earlier before I joined. But journey mapping, user flows, these are the means to figure out the things. And I think brainstorming is what we use to do that.
Okay. All right. So journey mapping is a separate tool.
No, means it's like not a tool specific, but if we use within a FigJam, means we use it like a standard template and try to do it like as a team. If we are discovering new feature or designing new feature, so how journey would look like of the user. Well, yeah.
All right. So essentially, what I'm hearing then is you're probably using tools like Word, Excel, or Google Sheets and Docs. And then there's probably design tools, which are either Adobe and there's probably communication tools that you're using, which are probably like something equivalent to Jira or something like that, where you're communicating with your engineering team or your product teams. And you're probably also using Google Meets or Zoom or some kind of a combination of a software tools. Communication tools to video communication tools to talk to each other. Akash, did I miss anything?
Like I use OneNote for doing ideation, basically.
Okay.
Whenever I do ideation, I do it on OneNote. So yeah, that's it.
Now the question is, how many of you have struggled with ideation by yourself? So Kaushik, Ramya, Pooja. Okay, so 3 people, that's it. And Ramandeep. Okay. So there's a good number of you that struggle with ideation. Man, I also do that, right? I always do my best ideation when I have a sounding board with whom I'm kind of talking and throwing ideas and kind of thinking through them. Cool. So now that brings me to my next question. So Krati, you have to share your screen. So which brings me to the next question. On an average 8-hour day, given a project, how much time do you spend on tools versus being creative?
Question is not very clear, Prasad. Can you be a little more elaborate?
So if you look at your 8-hour timeline, how many hours do you spend on tools versus how many hours do you spend being creative? Because if you're using a tool, you're not really thinking through it, right? Your mind needs to be creative. So there's a difference that I made is using a tool versus being creative. Go ahead, Pooja.
So actually it depends upon the task, but mostly 4 hours on tool.
Okay. All right. So let's just look at this. So there's a poll there's a poll that's been launched. So if you could just go ahead and type it in. All right. Go ahead, Ramya.
Yeah. So I find a little hard to answer this question because both happen simultaneously, right? We are working on the tool, and the thinking happens when we are working on the tool. So it's hard to differentiate these two things as one and the other. It happens, yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
an interesting perspective. But one of the things that we do when I'm running the trainings is I do not encourage people to use tools. I encourage people to do paper and pen, right? Or paper and pencil if better. And the reason that is the case is when you're using the tool and you're ideating at the same time, it degrades your ability to be creative.
right.
Because you're worried about how to use the tool and then you're also thinking. So rather pencil and paper is probably the best because you can erase it, you can move forward. And it's a much more tactile kind of an experience. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Is a lot of us generally tend to go directly on the tool and start ideating and thinking through, and that's what happens. Go ahead, Chaitanya. All right. So if you look at the solution that you see in front of us, it's 40%. It's like, there's about 23% of you said that you use a minority of the time, 20% on tools and 80% to thinking. But, there's quite a few of you. In fact, the majority of you spend more than 40% of your time on tools. Okay. Now, this is where I would say is one of the most interesting places where AI can help us. Okay. So if we can go on to the next slide. Right. So the question that I would actually ask is, what? Okay. So I'm not going to ask that question, but I think let me ask the other question, which is how many of you want to be able to get into do the hands-on exercise today? So we can decide on the on putting people into the groups. If you could just raise your hand digitally, that will be great, because then we can put you into groups.
Like Prasad, can I talk?
Yeah.
If it is happening before 9, I would like to do, because after 9 I have another meeting for the portfolio builder.
Before 9, what?
Like, oh, sorry, like before 9 a.m.
No, it's going to happen right now.
So I'm in.
Okay, it's going to happen right now. So how many of you are interested? So just keep your hands raised, and then somebody will decide on the grouping. But okay, so in my mind, the ideal amount of time that you should be spending on tools should be a minority, right? A significant minority. If you're in the 20-80 ratio, where 20% of your time is on tools and 80% of your time is being creative, you are in the sweet spot, because that is where you're going to be doing some of your best work. Okay. If you are in the 40% and all that, which is good for you, because you probably know how to use your tools well. You probably have figured out the efficiency, but I think there are newer opportunities. There are other opportunities that you can leverage to make things faster. So now that we have all the people who have identified themselves as volunteers, I'm going to run a simple task. So let's go on to the next slide. Right. And so what we did was we said, what are all the tasks that people need to do? So we basically said, as a designer, there are probably some 43 odd tasks, ranging all the way from identifying major problems in a screen, all the way to kind of writing the copywriting or creating visual variations of a screen. Let's go on to the next slide. Right. And then, defining an experience, designing an experience, or doing the workflows, wireframes, quickly building out the prototype. Let's go to the next slide. And so I'm not going to go into this a lot more deeply, but one of the things that we are looking at is, if you want to be effective designers in a practical environment, we are creating a list of all the tasks that we designers have to do. And then we are saying, how do we start approaching each one of them in a very practical manner? So that's what it is. So what I'm going to do today is, if you go on to the next slide, I'm going to literally take one of these exercises that takes, let us say, about, and I'm not even going to ask you, I'm not even going to talk about it, but let me ask you guys, how long do you think it should take to develop a user persona? Or a draft of a user persona? Anybody?
Max
4 hours, Arun?
2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours, okay.
I mean, thinking wise, I'm probably up to 2.5 hours, and drafting it probably half an hour, 45 minutes. That's it.
Okay, awesome, cool. Anybody else? If you do a persona in 2 to 3 hours, you're probably working really fast and you're probably missing out on your research.
Yeah, provided all the research is done beforehand and kept, you should be able to do it within 4 to 5 hours at least.
Okay, so generally when you look at persona, research is part of your persona, right? So you should be actually going out, looking at the data, collecting different sources of information, trying to understand how to segment it, how to group it and stuff like that. So that's always the challenge, and then you need to then start documenting it. And when you're documenting it, it needs to, again, there are different types of personas, as we've already, people who are familiar with the system will tell you. It's the demographic personas or a behavioral persona. Within UX design, we will do behavioral personas because that is more, that helps us a lot more tactically in terms of getting our designs executed. But the kinds of personas that you see online are usually demographic personas. So we do not want to do that. And for those of you that are curious, just search for behavioral persona. There's a couple of really good articles on Medium that talk to you about behavioral personas and how we can leverage them in design. But my answer would be that to do a persona really, really well would probably take you a few days. To get your first draft would probably take you about 6 to 8 hours. Okay, because it involves a lot of research. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a bunch of prompts. And what I would like for you guys to do is just look at the prompts and understand how I'm doing it. And then when you go off into your breakout rooms, you will get, Krati, do we have an Excel sheet for everybody?
Yes, it's ready. I'll share them in the chat.
Awesome. So what Krati will do is she'll share an Excel sheet of the data, high level data, and we will ask you to do a persona based on that Excel sheet. Okay. So now I'm gonna, if you can stop sharing and I'll start sharing, that'd be great. So share screen. Let's see. Okay. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. So I'm going to say that, my task is right now, I'm a YouTube guy. All right. So I'm basically trying to create a persona for my YouTube channel, create a bunch of personas so I can create content for them. Okay. So that is the problem that I have in my mind. So it's like, what am I going to do is I'm going to say create personas for my YouTube. And then I'm going to, let me clarify, behavioral personas for my YouTube channel. All right. So let me just move this stuff out of the way. Okay. So what did I do? I made a huge mistake. So can anybody tell me what mistake I did here?
I think you haven't told that, what type of YouTube channel you are using. you're creating
Okay.
personas.
Okay. That's so I have not customized it to my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But there's still something else that I did. That's a really big mistake that I would not recommend anybody to do in this case.
It was not defined to a specific number because this can go on, right? Maybe I wanted like two most important.
True.
Three most important.
Okay, so let's do that. So, and I've got a YouTube channel for EdTech, so education. So I have a, so I'm gonna just type it in so we can customize it. I have a YouTube channel for UX education. Right? Create top 3 personas. Okay, so that should hopefully address all the concerns that you said. I'm going to do this. So I'm going to.
I think we measured the behavioral persona mentioning.
So what do you mean? Okay, so I'm going to do this again. Create behavioral personas for my UX education YouTube channel. Create top 3. Okay. So I'm going to stop generating here. I'm going to run this. All right. Now, there's still a big problem that I have. If you guys can catch it, kudos to you. And I keep talking about it all the time.
You have not specified who you are, and I guess
I've specified I'm a UX education YouTube channel.
it's okay.
I think being specific to a region may also vary the persona.
Now, that is the point that I think you guys are all circling, but you're not understanding, right? What I've done is I've jumped directly into the tool and I'm asking the tool to do stuff that I should be doing, right? What is the job that the tool is doing? What is the tool automating? Right? Not my intelligence, right? So it's not automating where I should be thinking. It is automating my mundane tasks. Okay. So you should never go into a tool and basically tell them do something because you only know more about it. So what I would actually do, my job right now is, can you see my screen? My YouTube channel analytics?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm looking at my audience and I'm basically saying, okay, show me the audience. Okay. And I'm looking at all of these metrics and I'm saying, okay, wow, interesting, right? So what is it? So I see how my audience is playing out. Isn't it? My audiences are, and this is where what I'm trying to say is, this is the one thing that you can never automate. You have to do your homework. Okay. Never go to a tool directly and ask it to do your work for you. Never, ever do that. Okay. You do your homework, you go out, collect all the data, start thinking about the data, how you want to structure it, how you want to, because the thing here is, I just said top 3. Are they going to do it by age? Are they going to do it by behavior? I have no idea, right? And the tool is, I have no control over the tool because I'm just asking a bunch of questions. Whereas here, I'm actually thinking through, well, how should I group it? What should I think about this structure, right? So, and as I look through it, I say, okay, I want to see more. So now I'm basically looking at all of these metrics and I'm saying, okay, this is interesting. So the male versus female ratios are interesting. So the females are about 17% or so. And the male audience are, okay, the female audience is 26 and the male audience is about 73. Okay. And I'm basically looking at it. What is interesting is there is no female audience in terms of, the 35 plus age group, but there is a small audience at 18 to 24, and then there is a reasonable audience at 25 to 35. Okay, so we are seeing this data. I'm basically also going to be looking at watch time. There are lots of different metrics that I can look at. So I'm wondering how I can minimize this screen. Okay. So I can also filter by geography. I can filter across different locations. So no, I don't want to do that. So give me a second. And I'm just going to do a very basic high level stuff that you guys can look at and understand and observe how I'm running this show. And then I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so subscribers, turn on all notifications. Okay, that's fine. Subscribed, so 60%, 70% of the people are subscribed, about 30% are not subscribed. And let's see. And then I'm just basically going to look at this and okay. So now I have reasonably good data to kind of figure out at least my first draft that I can do. Okay. So what Krati and I did was we created a series of prompts that would work for us and that we could copy and paste and kind of execute on this. So what I'm going to do now is forget everything I taught you. Whatever I taught you till now was absolutely wrong. Okay. What you're expected to do is look at the metrics, look at the behaviors, look at your research and try to understand what are the 3 key groups. And then what we will do is we will go and we will create a task around that. Okay. So I'm going to now turn around and I'm going to say, all right, so let me now think about the sequence of tasks. So I'm going to basically look at, okay. So I'm going to literally take the content that I've put in the previous slide, and then I'm going to say, okay, now, or in the YouTube metrics that we have seen, and I'm basically typing it in. I'm a marketing, you are the UX person and you want to create different personas for different groups. And this is what it is. Maximum traffic comes from India, rest from the United States and Europe. 18 to 24 account for 23% of the views. And this is what I explained, create personas for this. Okay. Now, this is where you start. You start off with a core part of the truth, right? And then you start gradually expanding. And so now you basically come across and the system is basically going to say, okay, I've seen the data and I've kind of understood their 3 basic personas, because if you look at my metrics, there's nothing before 18 and there's nothing after 34, right? And so it's like, okay, so you notice now what the system is doing is it's saying, hey, Rohit is a young learner, he's a college student, it's passionate, blah, 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 and Priya is this. So notice now it is optimizing for India. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to start putting up my next prompt and I'm going to start thinking, well, okay, that's great. So let me think about other ways that I can, look at this data. So let us say that now, for example, I just found out that Telangana, Maharashtra, and Uttar Pradesh is probably where most of my traffic is coming from. Okay. So I'm going to say, okay, so let me basically add this content in there. I just found out that Telangana, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh can add, Telangana contribute a majority of the audience, right? Full stop. Add this information to the above 3 personas and provide me personas in a tabular format. Okay. Now, what is interesting is tabular formats are really valuable, because when you start looking at this in this kind of format where it's all running text, it's really hard. So within any persona, you would still expect some basic information, right? Well, what is the age group? Where are they located? What do people think, feel, say, and do, and those kinds of metrics. So those kinds of data, and you really want to make sure that all that data is present. And so the tabular format is usually the best format to get started on that. So it's going to be generating the content there. So today it is extremely slow, but that's fine. So now I have occupation, interest, motivation, and you can see, yeah, this is reasonably good. And this is, notice, at every point of the way, I'm still verifying and making sure that, this makes sense, right? So if it doesn't make sense, I'm going to step in and kind of ask it to correct itself. But yeah, okay, that's fine. Technology, design, interest, motivations are this, whatever. So it's giving that. Now, what I'm basically going to do is I want to get to what people think, feel, say, and do. Okay. Can you sync the over? Right. And I'm going to basically wait for the third persona to come in. For whatever reason, we are extremely slow today.
Only the upgraded user will get the speed output.
Sorry? Oh, is that what it is? Got
Yeah.
it. All right. So now I'm basically going to say, show me the behavioral traits for what people think, feel, say, and do. So as soon as this is done, I'm going to okay. And again, the idea here is not to be absolutely perfect. And if I were to say that this is the perfect persona on which you're going to do your designs, absolutely not, right? It is to get to your version 1, because most of the creative stuff happens when you have something on the ground. It's easier to edit a document as opposed to create a brand new document from the ground up. And the idea that we basically are saying is, yeah, that's exactly what you need to be focused on. Okay. Create your first version and then start thinking what else needs to come, what happens. So your first version, if you realize, takes you the most amount of time. The idea here is get your first version together to a reasonable level of okayness and then start fleshing it out. Right now, you start looking at the data, see what other components need to go in there, and it makes your larger experience much more powerful. So for all the personas, can you add behavioral? Can you sync the overall in the table format? Right. So it's going to do that again. And so notice now, as we start talking about it, things will start getting more and more crisper. They start getting more and more interesting. And then you can now make a lot more calls on that, right? So one thing that I notice is, yeah. Okay. So now it's kind of interesting. So now I can probably ask you to do some research. Now, again, there are new AIs that are going to be coming in that are plugged into the latest data and stuff like that. Right now, ChatGPT is not a AI tool that is connected to the latest data. So, but still, I want to show you the possibility of doing this for each of the personas. Show common tools used okay. Common tools and websites used. Okay, so this is where it is. Okay, so this is great. So now I'm basically going to say I want to look at common tools. So now you're gradually starting to think, you're reflecting. And so at this point, you have your first stake in the ground. Okay, now notice how long it took for us to get all of this done. Okay, it took us all of about 20 to 30 minutes. I just very briefly looked at the data. I have my first cut already set up and done. And now if I want to do more, this is where I can look at it. And now as I start getting more data and all that stuff, I start building it. And notice now, what is it that I've automated here? Can anybody tell me what did I automate here?
The data.
What about the data?
Collating the data, gathering from a lot of places and collating it.
Organizing data.
It is organizing the data. So what I've automated is my use of Microsoft Word, right? I have not automated my thinking process or my creative process. My creative process continues to be with me, right? Or the critical thinking skills continue to be with me, right? What I've done, if you notice, there's no spelling mistakes in this game. There are absolutely no spelling mistakes. I don't have to worry about spelling mistakes. I don't have to worry about formatting. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Isn't it? And and remember, I asked you this question in the beginning. It's like, hey, how many of you struggle with ideating on your own? Now you're not ideating on your own. You have an AI tool that's giving you the initial idea. Now you're accountable for this. You take this and you start working on it. Isn't it? Now, all of a sudden, what would have taken you at least to get your first cut is like 4 to 6 hours, as most of you have said, or, it's taken you almost about 20, 30 minutes and you've got your first cut. Right? And from this point onwards, the rest of the time is pure creativity, pure critical thinking. Right? You're not wasting your time on tabulating, creating the format and all that stuff. Does this make sense for everyone, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you guys to do is I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. Okay. Krati has created an Excel sheet of data, the basic initial data. And again, if you were to talk to a designer or you were to go into a job interview or whatever, never say that you use AI to develop personas, right? You use AI as an assistant, right? You are developing the personas. Okay. And that is the one core difference that I want you to understand really. All right. So Krati is going to put you into breakout rooms, and then you are going to then basically do this exercise by yourself. Okay. There's one group that will continue to stay here with me, and then I will, we will talk through this, and you guys will generate one of the personas. So go ahead and join the rooms. There are 4 rooms in there, and then technically there are 5 rooms. Go for it. So can you guys join the rooms by yourself, or do we have to assign you to them?
We have assigned, now they need to join.
Okay, cool.
I haven't got. Where do I find these assigned rooms here? I'm not able to find anyone. Neither I got any notification.
Chaitanya, you did not raise your hand?
Oh. Okay. So
we didn't know you wanted to be in a group.
Okay. Anyways, I got Excel sheet. I'll do I'll do something here.
Yeah, we are going to be doing stuff in the main room itself. So
Okay.
for those of you, for the folks that are watching on YouTube, they can watch us do this, and so they can get going. But the people that have been assigned can kind of get going into your groups and start thinking and ideating. And again, one thing to kind of share with you guys is, don't worry about what I've said. This is the only way to do it, right? There may be other ways. There may be other pieces of data that you may want to put in, okay? So I would say, feel free to add other pieces of data. Feel free to see how far you can go in 10 minutes. Okay, don't worry about, I've just shown you one way of doing it. So there are many other ways. You just go as far as quickly as you can. Okay, so everybody joined their groups?
Yep.
Okay. So who wants to be in my group now? Punish and Akash, you guys are going to be in my group. Is that right? And Chaitanya is going to be in my group. Awesome. So guys, if you can share the Excel sheet, or I'm going to stop sharing here. I would like one of you to share your screen, show the Excel sheet, and let's walk through how you're going to do this. So Punish, you want to do it? Yeah, go ahead, Chaitanya. Yeah, go for it. And so Punish, Akash, all of you guys can coordinate, talk to each other, whatever. I'm going to be quiet and just observing.
You guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure you're looking through all the tabs very quickly. Just look through all the tabs, make sure they all make sense to you. Down at the bottom. Yeah, look at the age group, geography. And while you guys are watching, you guys can start writing out your prompts, and you just put it in a Word document, write out your prompts, and then you can pitch it to Chaitanya, because Chaitanya is just looking at that data.
Just tell me when I have to go to the other tab.
Yeah, Chaitanya, can you just start from the beginning?
Yeah. Please do let me know when I have to go to the next tab.
Yeah, you can go on to the next one. So what we notice is the people between 25 to 34 age group are the most engaged. They have the highest number of views. All right. So the highest amount of engagement comes out of India. So that's another data point there. All right, let's look at the gender. Okay, so it's females are about 28%, male is 71%. Generally, if you're looking at females to males, it looks like the average view duration is about 25% less than that of the males. Okay, in terms of the view duration, and the watch times are about 22% and 77%. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, so we're looking at this, and looks like a majority of the people tend to watch on computers. There's a significant minority that watches on mobile devices, and then there's tablets and TV. So tablets and TV are not a big enough deal, but mobile devices and computers are the primary areas that we need to focus. Let's go on to the next one. Now, you guys can figure out how you want to segment. You can segment by device, you can segment by age, you can segment by anything. It's up to you. Okay. So yeah, so you're looking at the videos and you're saying, okay, so this is interesting. So 44% of the views come from live streaming. However, the average view duration from live, is less than the regular videos. However, the average view duration is more for live streams. Okay. All right. So we have pretty much all the data that's shared here. Now, what is your recommendation? How should we start? So where should we start segmenting by? Anybody?
I guess age.
Which one?
Age, because it's a clear division.
Age is there, but there's also like a device, right? So I'm curious. So if you look at the device type, I'm actually curious, is there an age versus device correlation? I don't know, right? Because it might be the hypothesis that I'm having is maybe mobile phones might be the younger generation. Right? However, I do not have the proof, but I'm just going to write it down. Again, this is where my critical thinking is coming, right? The first step, remember, I said critical thinking. So this is where you're just looking at your data and you're creating a bunch of hypotheses. You're writing the questions down. You will not get those answers today, but at the very least, you have those questions in your mind before you start generating. Okay, fine. So let's go with age. So let's create a prompt around age.
And also, so like it's an educational content. So people, by this data, we can observe that people mostly prefer computers for educational data, like to consume educational videos. That's why like computers are more in terms of mobile phones.
Possibly. That might be another interesting hypothesis. So is there a similar demographic for other educational websites, right? If it is, then yes, it makes sense. But that's a good hypothesis. Notice now, how you are now thinking about the data, right? You're not worried about creating the format. You're not worried about writing the Word document. You're just now really engaging with that data. So that's awesome. That's a really good hypothesis to have. What else? All right. So does anybody have a prompt with the for the age groups? Can we go to the age groups? Anybody have a prompt for this?
So I'm doing it for the all of the categories combined.
Which is what?
Like I'm taking the age group, geography, view gender, device, everything, and telling the AI that this is going to be a copy paste from an Excel sheet. So please mine the data and have like analyze it.
That's fine. So
Look
do
at
you
it
have your
and give
prompt
me a
ready?
first draft.
Do you have your prompt ready?
No, I'm just doing it. Like it's 80%
Okay.
ready. So I'm just
okay. Yeah. So once your prompt is ready, put it on chat so that Chaitanya go into the ChatGPT screen so we can start putting our prompts in.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
No, keep sharing. So open another tab and go to ChatGPT. Have you created an account? Do you have an account on ChatGPT?
No, it's saying waiting list. It's giving waiting list for me.
I can share.
Oh, you're on the waiting list. Okay,
Yeah.
so who has ChatGPT now?
Yeah, I have opened it at my end.
Who's that?
Punish.
Punish. Yeah, go ahead, Punish. Share your screen, and if you can stop sharing, Chaitanya, that'd be good, and then Punish can share.
Yeah, I stopped sharing.
Yeah, and what we are going to do 2 weeks from now is we are going to do like quite a bit of heavy duty work. So what I want you guys to do is open up ChatGPT accounts, open up Mid-Journey accounts. Okay, we will give you a list of AI bots for which you need to sign up and have accounts, because what we will do for this workshop coming up, for the workshop for the month of February, is we're literally going to take some of the top tasks and we will learn how to use AI to execute on those tasks. Okay.
Is my screen visible?
Yep.
Okay. So Pooja, was
actually,
that
I'm
a
done with.
comment or a statement? That's your prompt, is
That's
it?
the prompt, the first prompt.
Okay. So, but if you want to create, then you still need to tell ChatGPT what you want to write, isn't it? Okay. So let's try that. So can somebody just copy and paste this? As an educational teacher, I want to create content through videos for age groups 18 to 25. But then, you want to give the 3 different personas. I like your way of saying it, but you want to describe the 3 different personas and say, now create this for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need to mention education teacher? Well, generally we want to create personas.
Describe at least 3 personas. Can you write that? I've written that one.
Yeah, I have written like create 3 different behavioral personas.
Yeah, but you haven't given the age groups, right? You have not described 3 age groups. So you need to say 18 to 25, 18 to 24, 25 to 34.
And 35 to 44.
Yeah.
35 to
44.
44.
Is this fine?
Yeah, and also
let's
we have
try
to
this. As a UX instructor, instead of say educational teacher, say as a UX instructor.
And we need to mention India, I mean geography and device and everything, right?
If you care about it, if your company's strategy is that, and that's another interesting thing, right? If your company's strategy is I want to focus in India, absolutely. But if your strategy is not India, then you should be worried like, okay, how do I get the audience out of India? Right? You may want to create personas, even though you do not have much of a user base there, you still want to create personas for people that are outside of the US.
Okay, I have a question, Prasad here. Now,
Yeah.
when we are writing user
Go ahead and
personas,
enter. Yeah, Punish. Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question while it's generating.
when we are generating user personas, right? And now in the data it clearly says that from computer, people using computer, these many viewers are there for YouTube channel, right? For mobile, these many users are there. Now, when we are deriving personas or when we are coming up with any solution or features, it differs from device to device. Does it make any importance here, figuring those aspects, adding into that? Like how important these factors?
We don't know. And that's the answer, right? That's why I said we need to write this as our hypotheses. This is exactly what we are saying is our critical thinking for the future, right? Because you're writing the first thing and then you are going to do research. You're going to do a lot of research. You're going to do a lot of critical thinking.
Okay.
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 And so now you have this. Now let's actually take Akash's. I'm very curious about Akash's prompt. So can we just copy Akash's prompt completely and then paste it?
Should I run it?
Now analyze and generate personas based on the different generate behavioral personas. That's what you want to say.
Yes, my bad.
No, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, go ahead and enter. Let's see. Now notice what it is basically trying to do is device usage and stuff like that is basically seen across all 3. So I suspect that it is going to talk about that.
And it is just repeating what is there in the data that we provide.
Exactly.
It's like from his own thinking, he's not providing any stuff. He just copy pasting.
Exactly. And that is one of the reasons. And that is one of the reasons I'm telling you, like, never outsource your critical thinking. You can outsource The donkey work, which is creating the Word documents and all that stuff, but critical thinking continues to be with you. Okay.
It's just
However, there are things that you can do. Kaushik has one prompt. So can you copy Kaushik's prompt and bring it up?
Should I hit enter?
Yeah.
so like my one question here is like if do
Mhm.
we also mention the goal that we are trying to achieve to get like persona to be more crisp and precise? Like why
I
what I
have
want to achieve
found
with this persona.
that ChatGPT works better when you give it more context,
Mhm.
right? So let's write another prompt while it's coming in. Write another prompt. Refine the above personas with a focus on differences between each of them.
The focus.
On the differences between each of the three groups, right? Then put full stop. Present in tabular format. By Narsimha. Present in tabular format. I think that's fine. So let it generate, let it stop, because then this is a and I think this is fair, right? Because what the system is saying is I'm not able to see a lot of difference between three, but for tablets and computers and stuff like that. But let's actually hit enter and let's see what happens.
So I have a question while writing the prompt. So how far we go with providing means writing the analytic data? Because as we seen where we provide the analytic data more, so it is like giving us back that only formatting it in some manner. But I think the first
Right.
one, in that we had like more sense, means more contextual data.
Yes. And that's the problem, because the more data you give it, it's not, it doesn't necessarily have the critical capability. So it's going to fail, right? Which is one of the reasons why we are saying, you do the look at you look at it, look at the three different demographics, think, feel, say, and do. So when you're starting from there, you're not giving too much data, right? You have given the bare minimum, and then you're gradually building around that. Okay. But again, when you look at this kind of was a spectacular failure, right? Would you guys agree?
Yeah, like it's again repeating this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means
Yeah.
data we have in
And
Excel.
this is exactly what we do not want to do. Hence, the way that we talked about is actually a better way, right? Do not give too much information. Just focus on the primary differentiators. Ask it to create around the primary differentiators, and then based on the differentiators, ask it to add additional data. Okay. And that way you are going to be in a much richer kind of a scenario. Okay. Write your hypothesis on the side. See if there's other data that you can prove or disprove those hypotheses, but you're good to go, and you have your first draft in under 20 or 30 minutes. Okay. Is everybody back from the rooms? From the breakout rooms?
Yes, Prasad.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So that's what it is. So I'm, hoping that all of you have kind of understood the interesting details and the nuances of how to use an AI for creating personas. And we are literally going to do this for most of the major tasks. Okay. And what I want you guys to do before we do the next session in 2 weeks is I want you to sign up for ChatGPT, right? I want you to sign up for this tool called Midjourney, right? Uh, and I'm basically trying to get access to this really interesting tool that Saurabh talks about. And see, it's a purely a design centric kind of a tool. I'm going to try and get access to that and see if we can talk about it and discuss it for our training purposes. But again, all of this stuff is, what Krati will do is, or Rajiv, Krati or Rajiv, they will send you a list of all the tools, AI tools that you should sign up for. Okay. Keep in mind that a lot of these tools have usage limits. So for example, Midjourney, once you use up all your credits, you're done. You can't do any more. Okay. So don't use it too much unless and until we start the exercise, and then it's going to be, you will be able to leverage it. Otherwise, I would also say that you can probably partner with somebody else, and then when we are doing these exercises for the workshop in 2 weeks, we will kind of leverage each other's account. Okay. So the workshop registration form is here. Difina shared it, so make sure you're kind of putting it in there, and this is going to be purely hands-on. And I want you guys to kind of make sure you're giving the time and the brain space to kind of learn these skills. Okay. Now, what is interesting is this is exactly the same stuff that we're putting into our training program. We're no longer saying, visual design, you have to do this. Like, we are literally looking at our whole curriculum and breaking stuff apart and saying, okay, what stuff can be automated, what stuff cannot be automated, right? And then once that is done, then that is what is going to be the future. That's how it's going to be done going forward. So any questions, thoughts, or comments before we end this call today?
I have one question, Prasad.
Yeah, but I need to see you. If you are like turning
My
off your
camera is,
cameras, then I don't. Yeah.
okay. Apparently, Google has come up with Bard AI.
Yeah.
I mean, have you got a chance to go through that? Any?
My understanding is they've done some limited beta releases, but they have not done a general release.
Okay.
All right. And I also know that they kind of goofed up on their bar in initial video, and they lost a huge amount of stock value
Recently,
there.
I got to know that they lost $100 billion and their shares fell by 7%. So because of that initial goof up.
Well, I think it was a marketing error. So the marketing guys created the video, not the technical guys, and that was the problem. Because then they used the wrong example, created a video, it was completely in your control. It was a completely avoidable scenario. But again, it happens. These are, I would be betting on Google and Amazon if it was me, because the amount of data they have just makes their software so much more powerful. So I would be betting on them to see what they'll be doing. But again, I do not have access to their tool.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Any other questions, guys? Awesome. Cool. So again, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, feel free to sign up. We will be sharing the information for most of you guys. Again, day 1 is going to be open to everyone, but starting day 2 and 3, you would probably, those of you watching on YouTube, you probably get to watch on YouTube. For everybody within our group, we want to make sure you are getting hands-on practice. So make sure you're putting at least about 1.5 hours to 2 hours open for 2 weeks from now. So Krati will share the details of that event, because this is going to be fairly hands-on. One of the things that we are also looking at is potentially we only do 2 days instead of 3, because I have classes that I need to attend. Or potentially, we may have to move the timeline a little bit to make it work for me, but we will share the dates and the times with you guys. But make sure you're signed up for all of these tools. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And